Today, I'm going to be taking a first look at this Week 7 NFL DraftKings main slate. Like I always do here with these videos, I'm going to go position by position, talking about each play that's sticking out to me here early in the week, and then we'll wrap up the video by putting together a first look cash lineup and a first look GPP lineup. With that being said, let's dive into it. And we're going to kick things off here at the quarterback position. Now, early on in the week here, I got two cash game quarterbacks that are sticking out to me, a higher priced and lower priced option, and then one tournament quarterback that's really popping out to me as well, which we'll build a lineup around later on in this video. But in terms of cash here this week, yeah, we got some big names on the slate, Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, and Jackson. But for me, it's going to be spending up for Patrick Mahomes here in a good matchup at home against the Los Angeles Chargers, a team he's notoriously played very well against. He averages around 240 passing yards and 2.3 touchdowns per game against this team. Obviously a brand new team here this year, but I'm not really scared about that secondary or that defense as a whole for the Los Angeles Chargers. Wouldn't be surprised if Mahomes goes for 250 in this game, 2 or 3 touchdowns. Definitely the high spending option that I like. In terms of a low price quarterback here, I'm going to scroll all the way down to Sam Howell. So he's in the mid 5K range here, matchup against the New York Giants. I know I got my fat head in the way here recording in my hotel room this week, but let's see if I can pull that down here. So you can see he had 17 points in week 1, 21 in week 2, 19 in week 4, 29 in week 5, 18 last week. At that price, that's all we really need. We need 16.5 DraftKings points, in fact, in order for him to hit 3x value at that price. I definitely think he can do that against that Giants defense. Now, in terms of a tournament quarterback here this week, I really like Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks at home here against the Arizona Cardinals. Easy to stack him up with a DK Metcalf and a Tyler Lockett, but honestly, I'm not going to mind mixing in Kenneth Walker as well. That's how good this matchup is at home for them. That Cardinals defense, just not very good overall, one of the worst in the league. So it's $6,000 here, like I said. I'll build a tournament lineup at the end of this video surrounding the Seahawks. Now, moving over here to the running backs, right at the top, we got Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Bijan Robinson, David Montgomery, Kyren Williams, and Kenneth Walker. I suspect that Montgomery and Williams are not going to play here this week, so I'm considering them out here on a Tuesday. I do like some of the top-tier running backs that we have available, though, especially Josh Jacobs at this price of $7,400. Really good matchup against Chicago. You can see he's involved in the running game. Obviously, that's what he does, but high volume there, I like that. And I love the volume he's getting in the passing game as well. He hasn't been quite as productive as he was last year, and I think we were expecting a little bit of regression, but I think this could be a big week for him against that Chicago defense. Now, I also don't mind Saquon Barkley here at this price at $8,100. Decent matchup against the Washington Commanders. Again, the volume is definitely there. I just don't usually love this offense for the Giants in general, so Saquon's probably more of a tournament play for me at this price. If he was $7,000, I think he'd be more of a cash game consideration, and the player pool here for running backs this week isn't great for cash, so maybe we spend up for both Barkley and Jacobs, but initially if I had to pick between those two, it's definitely Jacobs. But like I said, I really like Seattle here as well. I think Kenneth Walker is going to be a great tournament play this week. Maybe we can sneak him in cash as well, considering the price. Scrolling down here a little bit, I really like Isaiah Pacheco here on the tournament side of things. I think Mahomes is going to be popular this week. We really don't worry about that for our cash lineup, but when it comes to tournaments, I might be looking to pivot off of that, go with someone here like Isaiah Pacheco. Again, I really like the volume for him and one of the best offenses in the NFL, and again, a good matchup at home against that Chargers defense. But as I scroll below that, not really interested in this 5K range. I think Ramondre is definitely interesting at that price, but that New England offense just hasn't been clicking. Mac Jones has been awful. I don't mind Jerome Ford here. I know Kareem Hunt was involved last week, had 12 rushing attempts, but Ford is still getting the volume here with 17 rushing attempts, or a majority of the volume in the rushing game for Cleveland. Still involved in the passing game as well. Again, I don't know if I can consider that in cash here early on in the week, but it definitely caught my eye. And then Roschon Johnson, I think he'll be back here this week, should cleared the concussion protocol. $4,600, very cheap. Deontay Foreman just wasn't good against Minnesota last week. So again, I really don't know what his role is going to be this week, but assuming he is healthy and the starter, I kind of like him at that price of $4,600 and in that matchup against Las Vegas. Now, folks, before we dive into the wide receiver plays here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Every like, comment, and sub on this channel truly goes a long way. You guys have been awesome so far this year, and I really do appreciate it. Let's try and get Slydog Sports to 4,000 subs, and I appreciate you guys bearing with me as well here this week with these videos out of my hotel room, traveling for work this week. I know it's a bit makeshift here, probably not the best of quality, but it's only 1 week, and I'll be back to my normal studio. With that being said, let's dive into these wide receivers. And it didn't take more than 2 weeks for Cooper Kupp to be back at the top of the wide receiver list here, priced at $9,500. And honestly, everyone, I think we can definitely play him in cash this week. The targets are always going to be there. The yardage usually follows, and he's bound to find the end zone more times than not. Scored a touchdown last week, put up 30 DraftKings points. I'd like to say that's the ceiling for him, but it's not. That's been a pretty consistent fantasy score for him in the 20 to 30K range over the last couple of years here. So yeah, $9,500 is certainly expensive, but I'm not going to be afraid to go there in cash. Now, obviously, I don't mind Diggs here. Keenan Allen looks nice. Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and even Puka Nacua there I think could be a nice tournament pivot off a Kupp, considering he's almost $2,000 cheaper. But I'm going to scroll down here. Like I said, I really like the Seahawks wide receivers this week in this matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. DK Metcalf here at $6,800, but I even more so like Tyler Lockett here at $6,000. Obviously, you get the price savings, and the volume has been there for him as well, and we all know he's very capable for that 30, 35 plus DraftKings point performance. I don't want to say it's a guarantee this week here, obviously, against the Cardinals, but it is certainly a great matchup for him to go off. Now, scrolling down here in the 5K range, I got a couple of plays as well. I do think George Pickens is interesting. Volume clearly goes his way. On the road, though, against LA, traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast, don't necessarily love that. I'm going to talk about Hollywood Brown here once again. Another week where he saw 11 targets. Didn't make the most of that, but he was also overthrown on 2 clear touchdowns. That's the Joshua Dobbs factor, but ultimately here, price isn't changing. $5,300 once again. Volume is there. I think he has to be talked about in cash once again, especially in a game they're likely trailing. And then Drake London here. I don't know if we can go cash game viable quite yet, but you can see pretty consistent volume there. The targets are definitely there. Back-to-back weeks where he essentially would have made value at 3x. 15 DraftKings points in week 5, almost 25 DraftKings points last week. It obviously depends on how much Atlanta is going to throw the ball. It obviously helps if they're trailing. So if the Bucs were to get out to a lead in this game, it would definitely benefit London. But yeah, I don't know if I can go there in cash quite yet, but definitely like him in tournaments. And then 2 wide receivers that stuck out to me here in the 4K range. First being Josh Downs. Now, I know this is a tough matchup against Cleveland, who look like they have one of the best, if not the best defense in the NFL right now. But again, the volume has definitely been there, especially with Gardner Minshew. You can see there 15 and 13 DraftKings points over the last 2 weeks. If it wasn't such a tough matchup, I'd say he's almost a lock for me at this price, but I'm going to want to look into that a little bit more. There is some nice value here, though, right at 4K with Curtis Samuel, and I'm kind of bummed that I didn't talk about him as a cash game consideration last week. It was on my radar, but I just didn't go there. Again, my fat head is in the way here again, but you can basically see he's played well all season long, especially over the last 3 weeks. 18, 18, and 14 DraftKings points, smashing value at this price here, $4,000. He's not a deep threat by any means. He's kind of a low A-dot type of player, but that leads to a lot of volume. And as you can see here, he's clearly capable of finding the end zone as well, scoring 3 touchdowns on the year. Now, moving over here to the tight end position, I do think Mark Andrews is really interesting here at this price of $5,700 in that matchup at home against Detroit. I think he should clearly be a 6.5K type of player, so I'll take advantage of that, especially in tournaments. But in terms of cash here this week, let's just go down to the 3K range. You guys know the deal. I'd love to talk about Logan Thomas, but I'm just not going to do it right now because he let me down so much last week. But it is someone that we might consider going back to here this week. I'm going to talk about Jonnu Smith again here. I know he's not the number one tight end in this Atlanta offense, but you can see the volume is clearly consistent. And at this price of $3,600, we really don't need much for him to meet value. As long as that volume does stay consistent, I think we have to talk about him for our cash lineups. And then I'm going to go back to Zach Ertz here as well at $3,200. I know he's not someone that's going to get us 15, 20 plus DraftKings points every week, but again, someone who gets around 4 to 5 targets per game. If we're looking to punt at this position, Ertz seems to be the guy, but overall, tight ends just kind of gross. I'd love to be able to get up to Mark Andrews if possible. And then when it comes to defenses here this week, I got two in the mid 2K range here, the Ravens and the Chiefs. You got the Ravens at home here playing Detroit, who notoriously plays much better at home. And you got the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. Maybe not the easiest of matchups, but this defense seems to be legit. Maybe one of the best that Mahomes has played with in his young career. You can see they're racking up sacks every week, forcing turnovers. So even though it is a tougher matchup against the Chargers, I don't mind it there at $2,400, especially when they're playing at home. All right, now let's put together a first look cash lineup here. I'm going to start by just putting in Patrick Mahomes. He really has played well against that Chargers team over the course of his career. I know that I could pivot to Sam Howell later on if I need that price savings, but we'll start there for now. I'm also going to put in Josh Jacobs, and then I'm just going to assume that Roschon Johnson is good to go here. He'll be the lead back in a good matchup against the Raiders, so that would save us a little bit of money as well. Now let's go over here to the wide receivers. I'm not going to be afraid to pay up for Cooper Kupp in my cash lineup this week. He's basically locked into 10 targets. I don't want to say he's locked into 100 receiving yards, but more times than not, he should probably get there. And like I said, more times than not, he's probably going to find the end zone too. So I do like that price tag, especially at home, playing that Pittsburgh defense. Now we're going to have to save a little bit of money here. So let's go down to this 5K range. Hollywood just continues to get a lot of volume his way. A game they're likely trailing and playing from behind. And then I'm going to save some money here by going to Curtis Samuel. That gives us $3,600 left over per position. So I'm going to go to the tight end here, and let's put in Jonnu Smith for right now. That's right at the $3,600 mark. And then I can put in a defense because I know I'm going to save some money there. We will go with the Chiefs. So that leaves us with $4,900 left over. The only guy I really highlighted here was Joshua Downs, but that would give us $400 to kind of move around if need be. Maybe I do pivot off of Mahomes there, get about $3,000 back, go to Sam Howell, and pivot off of Downs and pay up for another wide receiver. Now, let's go ahead and put together a first look tournament lineup as well. Talked about the Seattle Seahawks quite a bit here today, so let's build a stack around them. And I'm actually going to go with both Geno and Walker there, hoping the Seahawks score 4 or 5 touchdowns in that game. Let's put him with a wide receiver as well. I'm going to go with Tyler Lockett, get a little price savings there off of DK Metcalf. Let's go back to the running back here. I do want to get exposure to that Chiefs offense as well. A nice pivot off of Mahomes and probably Kelsey is going to be Pacheco. So we got about $5,000 left over per player. I really like the way that Drake London's playing right now, so let's put him in. And then I want to get some money back, so I'm going to put in Curtis Samuel as well. What does that leave us with? About $5,200 per player. I do want to put in Mark Andrews here. I think he's too cheap, and I really do like the matchup. Like I said, I think he should be in the mid 6K range. And then let's put a defense in here as well. There's no correlation here, but let's just put in the Ravens defense with Mark Andrews. I don't know, maybe they force a turnover at the 15-yard line. He scores a touchdown or two. And then we got $7,600 left over for a flex position. We could go with a Puka Nacua there. We could go with a Josh Jacobs. I'm going to go with the safe play for now. I really like that matchup anyway. Go with Josh Jacobs there. $200 left over. Yeah, maybe you could pivot somewhere, but for the most part, I actually quite like that tournament lineup. All right, everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank you all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great week here, everyone. In the meantime, I'm out of here.